Evening, everybody. We are over the hump, and no, it's not hump day. We are over the halfway point in this very short GT3 series for ASR in 2022. And we've had the North American leg, we've been to Canada, we've been to the United States twice. We're now down to South America for the fourth of 6 races, or rounds rather, this year. And we're at Campo Grande in Brazil. It's not Interlagos. It's not a bit closer to Sao Paulo than a lot of people think. It is inland quite substantially, and it's the first time that we're here. So it's the first time we've had 4 consecutive rounds in any of ASR's top flight series where there's been no records set. So there's a little bit of slice on history tonight, like there has been for the previous 3 rounds. And while there's things that are new, the one things that haven't changed are the crew in the commentary box, and that's myself, Steve DeVries, Josh Bagsy Bags, and Michael the Floodman Zalavari. And gents, I know we've seen a fair bit of a dominant performance so far for the majority of the series with Luke Rosella in his Porsche, but what about tonight? Do you think it's going to be the more things change, the more they stay the same, or do you think we could see an upset here?
Evening, Nether. Evening, Floody. Evening, everyone. It's hard to say, really. We've got Bolger on top of the timesheets, but I feel like Rosella's just always, this whole series, keeping a little bit in reserve and just, ready to demoralise people by going that little bit faster. We've got the low 119s as we're coming towards the end of practice, and I feel like that Rosella might be sitting on an 18.5 that he's just going to pull out in the middle of nowhere. Whether or not Bolger and also Redmond can match that will be another story.
Evening, Nether. Evening, Bagsy. Evening, everyone. I tend to agree with Bagsy. This is a new track that no one's really seen before. We know how good a qualifier is, that Luke Rosella is. And also, we're running the 70-minute format tonight. And if you recall back at Watkins Glen, we saw that the Porsches were able to run that entire race on a single stop, effectively buying them, 40 seconds to a lap over their competition. So it remains to be seen whether or not that will be the case tonight. It might be a bit more of a close run thing. There has been a balanced performance change to the Porsches to reduce their fuel, to increase their fuel usage. But we also know how feather-footed both Rosella and Lewis Wedding are in those Porsches. So it will be an intriguing night's racing. 70 minutes will be right in the dead zone between a 2-stop and a 1-stop. And if the times at the tops are anything to go by, we're in for at least some on-track action somewhere during the evening.
Yeah, I think you two are sort of pretty close to on the money there. The only thing to keep in mind, I guess, too, when we look at the 70-minute format that we last ran, of course, back at Watkins Glen, was the amount of time that you spend at full throttle at that particular circuit with Watkins Glen. It's probably well over 70% of the lap spent at full throttle. There's 3 straights in there. There's the run up the hill, which, of course, uses quite a fair bit of fuel. Whereas tonight, I think it's probably sort of around about the 50 to 60% time spent at full throttle. You've got 2 parallel straights, front straight and the back straight on opposite sides of the fence. And for you at home, that's the tyre barrier that is on the left-hand side of your right-hand side of your picture there, driver's left going down the front straight. And there's a short chute out of turn 3 that runs all the way down to turn 4 through the turn 5 rather, through the inconsequential corner of turn 4. And that's about it. After that, there's some sweeping bends where you can save a little bit of fuel and a couple of short, sharp corners as well. So I think there'll probably be a little bit more fuel saving without the need to run behind another car than what people think. And that's what Lewis Wedding and Luke Rosella did fairly well when they were at the 70 minutes of the Glen about 6 or 8 weeks ago. They actually sat behind the bigger Benzes of Foley and Co for a little bit, preserved some fuel, and then that was able to get them over the half distance mark and into the pit stop window.
Yeah, so with less straight line, less full throttle running this time around, we might see more cars get into that one-stop window, but it will remain to be seen. Remember, we've got a formation lap and a grid lap as well, which means that there's extra laps, and it's +1 lap as well at the very end. So you have to get over the 35-minute mark to guarantee getting to the end on one stop. Bagsy?
Yeah, I was going to echo exactly that. But it's going to be who can get that fuel saving until the middle mark, and I feel like we might see an abnormally slow outlap, or formation lap, I should say, to see some people try and get that extra little bit of fuel saved they might not otherwise. Also, safety cars here. It's fairly wide track, so there's not a like maybe we'll get some safety cars, but it is hard to say.
Yeah, I think so too. I think the hard braking zone at turn 1 and maybe the last couple of corners, if there's going to be an incident, that's probably where they're going to end up. You're right, Bagsy, it is a fairly wide circuit. You can run two side by side quite comfortably for a lot of the lap. I have seen a few people practicing that in the practice servers leading up to tonight's race. Just waiting on qualifying to get underway here. We're not too far away from going live. And at the moment, I think it was Steve Bolger who said top the timesheets, fastest man in practice, 119.0. That's where we sort of think we're going to see the pole position time coming from. Looks like we're good to go, and qualifying getting underway here. Here's the field starting to roll down pit lane, headed by the man we just mentioned in Steve Bolger in his Gravel Rash Racing McLaren. And then a number of cars behind. Here we go. Phil Boak, who's a late entry into the server, Turmo. And there goes the first of the Porsches. Luke Rosella heading out, followed by Brenton Foley and Phil Boak, and then Higginson and Darren Loughnane and Cam Parrott. So there's a handful of the drivers heading out onto the circuit to start the first of the flying laps. All right, gentlemen, I think we've already said that our money's probably going to be on Luke Rosella, probably to bag the pole. But that being said, we really haven't got a real indication of the low fuel running here. We haven't really crunched the numbers to see who's actually running the lowest fuel on the times that have been set so far in the last couple of days.
Well, it'll certainly be... Go ahead, Bagsy.
It's going to be a hard one to predict just because I feel like the car performance here is going to play, or less car performance, but the setup factor and how people go for their setups. Because this is a track of like long straights, but then also the very tight corners, it's going to be a real compromise as to where you gain that time. And as far as I know, you can't change your setup between qualifying and the race, so people might have to go for some fairly significant compromises here.
They might have to trim a little bit of wing out. I've been hearing that a few drivers have been running a little bit more downforce to get a little bit more performance through some of the higher speed stuff, so the car sits a little bit more nicely planted to the ground. But then if you don't sort of get that balance right and trim your wing out a little bit, you're going to suffer on some of the straight line stuff.
I was just going to say, so I'm watching Steve Bolger on his first quality laps. He runs quite wide over the turn 3 exit. That it seems to be a track that the McLaren might be suited to. You know, the true all-round sort of track, sweeping bends, tight bends, straights, short punches. It seems that the McLaren might have a bit under its sleeve here. And as the first times through the first sector roll in on the exit of turn 3, it is Bolger with the fastest time at the moment, as we see him smash the brakes into that flowing turn 6. Holding a lot of throttle, I noticed, through the mid part of that corner, as he goes down to first gear to get the front tucked in for this internal little loop. 180-degree left and then a pair of 90-degree right-handers. For that a little bit of a slide there into the final little dog leg, and he comes across the line. The first lap in anger will be a 2:18.6.
18.
Wow.
That's elevating the game a little bit here. So the the McLaren had something up its sleeve. So Bagsy, the 1 minute 18 and a half that you were predicting Luke Rosella was going to produce, it's going to have to appear. That's there's no ifs, buts or maybes about it, is there?
He's half a second off of first place now, so it's he's still got a bit. He's got a bit to find. That's slower than the laps. That's a lot of laps he's done, so he'll certainly gain a bit. But yeah, that's a lot of time gained from Bolger for sure.
That's a massive amount of time found. That's full 4/10 of a second from his fastest lap in practice as well. So He was heading the timesheets for most of practice during the day today. He was also heading the sheets for most of the practice sessions during the week just gone, as he's on another lap now, but he's thrown it away. Just see the tail a little bit too happy going into the inner loop, and I think he'll be just gearing himself up. Another one here. A little bit of a slide job, a little bit more slidey. The helicopter giving us some great shots here of just how that Lamborghini's reacting, and he's gone back to the pits.
Brenton Foley's just about to come across the line. He currently sits in third. He hasn't improved on his lap time. He currently sits on a 20.1 for Foley is his best lap. Termo sits in fourth place. He's also, as we've got another new lap for Steve Bolger, who's come across the line. Oh, no, for some reason my timing is doing something weird.
I thought it on here for me too,
yeah,
actually.
I saw a big purple flash and I was like, ooh, lap time. But no, it is just that 18.6 that we are still seeing. Lewis Wedding has got the new purple sector in Sector 2, which encompasses the back straight. So he's coming to finish up his lap at the moment.
Nearly threw it away at the last couple of corners too. He had two wheels in the dirt on the left-hand side and gets to the line, goes to P7. So lost a little bit of time in the final sector. But that's his, I think, second flying lap actually as well. So
Luke Rosella is up through the second sector. He's up by.
Oh, he skated wide though.
He's gone wide.
Yep, he had a lock up there running into the inner loop, and that might be enough to just scuttle the time a little bit. It was a 26 flat, so the middle sector time was quite handy. Don't think it's going to be an 18 though. It might be a high 18. That's 18.6. Okay, right.
And he was only what is that? 6/10 or 600ths rather away from Steve Bolger. So we could be on for a grandstand finish here in qualifying, lads.
Very possible, actually. So 2 times yet to be posted. This is one of them, Darren Lockman, and he goes into 11th, 21.412. The only other one we're waiting on is for Glenn Miles, but I believe just looking at what's going on here, he hasn't probably got enough time, unless he gets out in the next sort of 30 seconds or so, to get a really good lap in. Looks like he actually might be quite content to sit in pit lane, start this one from the rear.
Good strategy, Cotton.
Now, Luke Roselle's got a little bit of traffic here as well. He just had to find his way past Phil Boak, who I think he on himself might actually be on a flying lap. Just trying to get confirmation if that is actually correct. Actually, no, he was on an out lap, so a little bit of negotiation required for Rosella, but actually he's on an out lap now as well. I just realised, so just disregard everything that I just said.
Bolger is just ahead of him though on a fast lap as well.
Okay, a couple of other salient points. So we've got a couple of drivers starting probably with their last runs, at qualifying. So Higginson with the lights fully ablaze on the Ferrari 488 is on his way to turn 2. He'll get at least 2 more laps here.
Bolger's going faster, but he's made the same mistake Rosella did through turn 7.
He's in the last couple of corners now. Last proper corner of the circuit is turn 9, and then turn 10 pretty much is just a flat out, keep your foot to the floor, keep the run to the line fairly straight. Actually improved, found a little improvement. And that was in the last sector, so that's now purple last sector for Steve Bolger. Fastest of all, 29.965, and just edges away a little bit more, gets that margin for Luke Rosella out to a 10th. You just see the number 55 Porsche just in the background there, just trailing along after the number 87 GRR McLaren.
Very wide from Rosella. He's up on Bolger's time, but he got quite wide in the exit of turn 3/entry of turn 4. It doesn't look like he's got a track cut though, so we'll see how it goes when it goes to the next sector time. He will also really only get 1 more lap if he's fueled for it. If he hasn't fueled for it, this will be the last lap he gets.
Well, there's a split screen for you here. You can see where Bolger is versus what Rosella's up to. So Bolger's big screen and Rosella behind. Both quite well tucked in.
He's up 2 tenths.
Yeah,
He
Rosella's
is.
doing quite well this lap. And the thing that's separating this lap from what we saw previously for both Bolger and for Rosella is that it's settled. The rear is really tucked in. It looks like he can get the front tucked in as well, and there's no unsettlement as he comes over the curb to finish this lap. Bolger will cross the line first. He doesn't improve, and Rosella will cross the line and goes to the top at 18.3.
Okay, so there we go. So the 18.5 that we were predicting from Rosella is actually an 18.3, and unless Bolger's got something still in the tank, that should settle it. But Rosella will have to tail him here. He'll have to tail him and make sure that
This will be both their last lap.
It is. So this will be their last lap for sure. Bolger's fractionally away. Rosella's the same. So they're virtually almost identical to the first sector split on this last of the qualifying runs.
A little bit of a moment for Bolger, just bringing up the throttle, and the rear seems to be disconnecting very easily on that McLaren. It seems like he tips the front in and the rear just slides just a little too much. And it's happened a few times this lap, and we see it again, just a little bit of hesitation from the rear, and he's out by 3/10 of a second with 1 sector to go.
Here they come into the inner loop, and he's gone way too deep and
too
thrown it away.
Rosella's followed him.
Yep, Rosella's followed him into it as well. So Rosella will complete the lap. There won't be any issues there at all. But that secures pole for Luke Rosella, unless one of these guys a bit further down the order can pull a miracle out of their hat. Redmond is the next one to get across the line. He's currently P4, last couple of corners to go. And Lewis Wedding tucked in behind him. So been in 4th place and in 7th place. Between them, Turmo and Cam Parrott, and Redmond doesn't improve, and behind him,
Wedding up to 3rd.
Wedding, late improvement, big improvement actually. So that actually shuffles Tim Redmond down a row. It actually puts him down to P5 after that one. So where did Wedding find that? He found he didn't purple any of the sectors, but he put a good set of 3 sectors together. Importantly.
He found a second on that lap. He must have not got a clean lap at all prior to that running to gain a second, because you don't just gain a second.
Hold on a minute. Turmo makes it even worse for Redmond. Turmo goes P4, so that actually puts Redmond onto the outside of row 5. So a little bit of a change there for Turmo. Very, very nice job late in the piece. And the only cars left out on track at the moment, Phil Boak, he's actually about a quarter of a second down on his PB, and he is actually the last man on a flying lap right now.
And he's not on a flying lap anymore.
He's in the
fence.
He's in the weeds.
Almost.
He's in the weeds. That's where he is, and that's the end of that. So as Wedding Tours back to the pits, it'll be stablemate in Luke Rosella on pole. So actually maintains his I think his pole streak here. I think he's got all the pole positions so far, gentlemen. I can't recall him not missing a pole position at all this season, and start from that spot on the grid yet again. So ahead of him is it going to be clear track, but alongside him it'll be Steve Bolger, Lewis Wedding, Turmo, Brenton Foley and Tim Redmond, Cam Parrott and Phil Boak, Higginson and Steve Warwick, the top 10, and then 4 drivers after that, Darren Loughnane, Cracker and Brian Walsh. And Glenn Miles, no time, but will be permitted to start from the back. And just waiting to see if there's might be one more late entry into this one. We're just waiting to see how if Rhodey might be joining us. We actually just got some word through that Will Devonish is going to not take part in this one, and I think Redmond was saying he's a bit disappointed his grid buddy, which is Will Devonish, is not here to have some fun with racing through the pack from the rear of the grid.
Yeah, it was odd that Redmond actually qualified for a change.
Mm-hmm. Anyway,
disappointing for us too that we're not going to have Devonish slicing his way through.
No, not in this case, and looks like the BIA drivers briefing's about to get underway here, I think, and there is officially the flag and the session tick over. So we'll have a quick look at our point standings and our track overview for this one. So let's pull the track overview up now, thanks to Google Earth Studio. Here we go. On to South America and into Brazil. So you can see Sao Paulo sort of off there to the bottom right-hand side, and we're going way inland for this one. And this little racetrack is sort of carved out in the middle of nowhere. It's almost part of like a desert. And And here it is. You can see there's actually two configurations. One with the slightly bigger outer loop, which is the one that we are running tonight, and then there's like a slightly smaller loop, but they do have the same turn number, which is turn number 7. Only the 10 turns, a couple of inconsequential corners here, basically turn 10, which is the last little left flick on the run up the main straight, and then turn 4, which is just a very slight bend in the road between turns 3 and 5. 3.5 or just short of 3.5 kilometres long, and we think based on the lap times we're seeing, we're going to be somewhere in the vicinity of 50 to 54 laps. So Flood, it's going to be a bit of a concentration test, I think. Shortish lap, a couple of bits of respite, but some technical parts as well. So it's not all going to be plain sailing tonight.
Yeah, especially when we compare it to the last 70-minute round at Watkins Glen. I said then that it would be a lot of laps and a lot of concentration, but what we ended up seeing was that because you had a lot of straight line and a lot of full throttle, we didn't really see that concentration mistakes at the end of the race. Here, though, we've got a lot of corners, that 180 degree turn 1, 180 degree turn 7, a few sweeping bends as well, a few corners that you've really got to measure your braking and your throttle application. If we see some cars like Steve Bolger's car that seem to be a little unsettled, it's going to be a long race for them tonight, even if they are showing some pace. What I have noticed just on this onboard is that a lot of the corners are actually cambered in, but the one that really isn't is that one that we saw everyone making mistakes at turn 7. So that's been catching people out in qualifying, and that's probably going to catch someone out in the race.
Thanks.
Yeah, something else to consider is it's a bit of a interesting pit entry in that you are shortcutting turns 9 and 10, but it is very twisty. It's a quick, you go right and then left and then right again. And I feel like we might see some people make mistakes trying to attack that, because you can gain a lot of time, but if you make a mistake, you could very much David Coulthard at Adelaide it if you're not careful.
Yeah, you are right. And actually, what I might do is just very quickly bring up the that part of the pit lane you were talking about. I'll bring it up on screen so everyone can actually see how it's all going. So there it is in question. There is the last sort of corner complex. If we just pan our camera to the right just a little bit, you can see there's the inner loop we're referring to. There's the pit lane entrance. It actually says the word box on the ground there. It doesn't say pit. You have got a little chicane sort of there, like sort of a two sort of 180 degree right-hander and then a sort of another 180 degree left-hander. And then the pit lane line comes up very quickly. Actually, really good illustration here with Rosella going around, and there it is there. That's where you hit the anchors, that puff of smoke where his tyres all locked up. That is essentially where the stop line is. And it's a 60k pit lane speed limit. So a number of tracks we've seen are 60, some are 40 in real life, but it's 60 here. But you're right, Bagsy. I'm with you. I would not be surprised to see one or two people make a mistake there, and then they'll cop a pit lane speeding penalty. It is a fairly shortish pit lane in terms of length with the front straight, and the transit time at 60 k's an hour is not huge, but in the context of a lap that's a minute and 20, it's quite large.
One of those little quirks of these circuits that we're unfamiliar with.
Let's bring up the driver standings while we wait for briefing to get completed. So here it is. So at the top of the tree, Luke Rosella, clear of Lewis Wedding by a comfortable 17 points at the moment. So it's not a full race win. It's actually 25 points for a race win in sprint, 45 in the 70-minute races, and 50 in the 90-minute enduro. So the upshot for Rosella is, as long as he leaves the second to last round of the series with a 50-point gap and the amount of wins he's got in the bank, he will be the champion quite comfortably. But we've still got a little bit to play out between now and then. The real battle here, gents, is all the positions on back of second. So it's a 2x2 essentially. You've got Rosella and Wedding, the two Lou Sim Sport teammates. You've got Foley and Boak, the two PBF teammates. And Termo and Steve Bolger, the two Gravel Race Racing teammates. And they're all very, very close. And a number of drivers down that order can swap positions. All it takes is one bad result.
Yeah, and this is as is the point system with this, consistency is the key. Rosella can just follow Wedding home the rest of the series and he will still win. But it's a dangerous strategy because if you have one slip up, and one internet issue or something, then you're losing a whole race's worth of points. So he really wants to try and get this stitched up before the final round, which he can do if he is, because Wedding has had some worse results, and Rosella's just been winning everything he looks at for the most part.
Yeah, I would agree. It's a case of that Rosella you're right, could essentially follow Lewis Wedding home for everything. But I mean, that's not the Luke Rosella way, is it? We expect to see that he's going to be fighting quite comprehensively to try and keep winning as many races as he can, and sort of try and get as far out in front as he can. Only the one blot on his copybook so far, which was that mistake in the first race at the last round at Portland, which sort of ruined the streak that he had going. He'd won both the longer enduro races up until that point, and then consequently had to leave Lewis Wedding to take the win in that one, and then turned around and actually backed it up and went back to his winning ways by winning the second of the two sprint races at Portland. So I tell you what, he'd be missing out on a perfect season if he wasn't able to, if he wins all the remainder of the races from here on in, I should say.
Has anyone in ASR history had a perfect season?
No, I don't believe we actually have. I can't recall a season where that actually would have occurred. The only thing that would have sprung to mind might have been back in the day where Brenton Foley was having a fairly good run at the TCC series, which was predated TCR. There was about 4 or 5 seasons of the front wheel drive cars that went on, and he won quite a lot of those races. And if memory serves me correctly, Rhodey might have to correct me on this. I don't believe he won every race and ended up with a perfect season. I think he probably won about 80 to 85% of most of those races, but never won the whole entire thing.
Yeah, the only other person I can think of in the mix might be Brenton Hobson, who was I've done a lot of commentary on the TCAC streams and the Super Series, but even then, I don't think he had a perfect season. Partly because of the fact that there were weight penalties applied throughout the season. So I believe it got to a point where Hobbo was basically a sitting duck in a straight line for the most part, which he still managed to deal with quite well by being very difficult to pass and using some great pit strategy. But yeah, it would be an interesting task for Rhodey to go maybe dig through the archives and see if we can find something out there.
I think so. Well, he actually has been building a fairly good wiki site and database for a little while now. I'm not sure where it is up to at the moment, but I'll be keen to see the statistics that come out of that when he gets that up and running. Team standings. Now, we haven't had the team standings up at all throughout the half of the season we've been through so far. So we'll bring it up for you now just to see where everything's at. And that's mainly because Lewis Wedding said he would like to see a team's championship. And, well, there's the evidence there as to why he wants to see a team's championship, gentlemen, because look how far out in front the Loose Sim Sport Porsches actually are.
It is entirely unsurprising considering who was first and second in the championship, and who was second and third, third and fourth in the championship, and who was fifth and sixth in the championship. The positions of the top three. I think the battle between PBF and Gravel Race is going to get significantly more interesting in the back half of the season. It looked like particularly Bolger didn't have a handle on that McLaren to start the season, but he seems to have found something now. And on the flip side, Boak seems to have lost a bit of a handle on that Mercedes, at least for tonight. And well, we saw as well at the last round in Portland that the PBF cars didn't really have the outright pace there. So that is a battle that I'm going to be fascinated watching. But yeah, Bagsy, look at the gap between Loose Sim Sport and PBF at the moment. They are just absolutely bossing this season so far.
Yeah, I mean, Loose Sim Sport could sit out this race and they'd still be ahead, even if PBF got a 1-2. So it's yeah, they're going to find it very hard to lose from here in the team's championship. I think their Loose Sim Sport team is maybe the only team that cares about the team's championship. So
yes,
we could just put a number one Loose Sim Sports at the start of every broadcast, and they'd probably be happy.
Yeah, I do. Sorry, Nether. I do actually want to see if we can make a story out of second and third. I think if Turmo and Steve Bolger start to get some good results from here on in, it could really tighten up.
I would make a case for that as well, and I'd love to see it because I've watched people like Turmo from when they first started in this racing in this league, work their way through Super 2, do a lot of work in supercars and so on and so forth, and see them move up the field, and to see Turmo like where he's at. And I think him and Bolger are a fantastic pairing. Like, I think they complement each other really well, and I'd love to see them actually, try and make that way up the order. And there's not a lot in that. I actually think there's the massive potential there for the GRR guys to overhaul the PBF guys between now and the end of the season. I think it's absolutely doable. And I agree with you. We'll let's keep an eye on that one with interest. I'll be interested to see how that one goes as well.
Watch one thing as well between WIT Blackshaws and Playboy Racing as well. So that's another one to keep an eye on.
Yes, agreed. There's plenty to go with that one as well as we see it all start to unfold. We're just keeping an eye on the practice that's going on at the minute. Looks like briefing's finished. I've actually just seeing, looks like the bots have decided to violate the community guidelines in the live stream, so we'll get rid of them with vested interest, and we'll go and see what's actually happening at the moment out there in practice. Actually, what is happening at the moment is Higginson's trying to get a pit lane entry done, and is just lighting it up any direction that he wants to go at the moment. And here we go. So there are some stops, look like they are being practiced at the moment, just to see what the actual transit times and so on and so forth actually are, which is actually not a bad idea. Actually, Higginson was all over the shop coming into pit lane there, gentlemen, so we'll have to see how the entry is and the arrival for a lot of drivers as the day or the evening wears on, I should say. As I'm still a bit suspect that the pit lane is going to produce an unfortunate victim who finds their race ruined by, well, let's just say their own fault, I think is probably the right word to put it.
Yeah, well, the pit lane is part of the racetrack, and you've got to make sure that especially in endurance racing, you've got to make sure that you've got every facet of the race and the track down, because you don't know when you're going to end up somewhere that you're not used to, because you need to pass someone, or in this case, because you need to get into the pits. So, who is willing to make a bet on who was the first person to hit the wall there?
I don't know about a bet of who's going to hit the wall. I'm actually looking from the point of who's probably going to be the first person to pit. That's what I'm going to be looking at.
Even though he's not racing, I'm going to pick Rhodey for the first one.
Mate, he's already in the pits. He's permanently in the pits. I think he's actually on top of the pit building watching this race.
Actually, he's in the server now. So.
Oh, here we go.
Look at that. So I'm gonna stick with my Rhodey.
You're gonna stick with his bet now. Okay. Let's just say you got lucky on that one. I'm going to say, Flood.
But Nether, is it better to be lucky or good?
I'm going to sit on the fence on that one. I'm going to inherit my splinters from the fence now.
I'm good at being lucky.
Oh, well, that's just lucky.
Okay.
Indeed, it's a very good thing.
All right, we're going to get a good example here of Phil Boak trying to make an appearance in the pit lane. That's not how you do it. And he got the first. Actually, he really attacked that pit entry. Did he? What? Let's have a look at that one on the replay, actually, because that's worthy of having a little bit of a look just to see how he actually attacked coming into the lane there. Let's actually go on board. Actually, no, we won't go on board because practice is over and we're rolling over into the race. So didn't quite get that one done in enough time, unfortunately, gentlemen.
But we are just about queued up for the race this evening. 70 minutes. We're looking at around 52 laps, and if the pit stop, well, when the pit stops happen, we are sure to talk plenty about that pit entry. What are we expecting from this race based on what we've seen in practice and qualifying? Bagsy.
What we're expecting is Luke Rosella to be flying past out of the first corner and to be leading by a fair way, and then a large squabble for second and third place. Who that will be is unknown at this point, because we have seen a few mistakes from all the front guys apart from Luke Rosella once. So yeah, I'm putting my safe money on Rosella winning, but then maybe a Boak, Foley second and third, depending on if they can get their fuel usage down enough to one stop.
No faith in Bolger and Turbo?
Not tonight, no.
Wow. Very hard taskmaster is Mr. Josh Bagsy Bags. Nether, what about you?
I don't know what to think, actually. I would like to hope that there's going to be a nice close run thing out in front tonight, that it will go down to maybe like the last 10 or 15 minutes between Bolger and Rosella. I'm with Bagsy, though. The smart money says Luke Rosella, but I wouldn't be surprised to see it go down to the last few minutes of the race to decide it.
Certainly hope that is the case. As we are rolling away on the grid, it is Luke Rosella who took the pole with a 1:18.3 in the dying throes of qualifying to take that pole position from Steve Bolger, who set the early pace in qualifying with an 18.5. They were the only two in the 18s. They were followed by Lewis Wedding, who basically on the last lap of the session found a second to find his way into third place, and then Turmo in fourth place. So it is a Loose Sim Sport Gravel Rash first two rows, and then the first of the Mercedes Brenton Foley in fifth place. Tim Redmond rounds out the top six. First time we've seen him qualify a car in a while. He's driving for the Racers Edge Motorsports in the guest car in the Acura. Cameron Parrott starts out of 7th, Maple Leaf Sim Sport Audi, and then Phil Boak in the PBF Race Engineering number 8 Mercedes. Not quite getting the lap together. We saw him make that mistake on his last flyer at turn 7. Hayden Higginson starts in 9th in the Higginson Media Engineering Ferrari, followed by Steve Warwick in the Warwick Racing Team Blackshaws Aston Martin. Darren Lachlan will start from 11th place, the Dream Racing Lamborghini, followed by Cracker in 12th place in the first of the Lexi. Brian Walsh will start from 13th, being the last qualifier this evening. We had two not qualify. Rhoda, who just jumped in before the race start, in the second of the Lexi, and Glenn Miles electing not to qualify, as Brian Walsh has made a mistake on the formation.
Yeah, that's a bit odd for Walsh. And now he's going to have to start from the rear of the grid for that one, so he's not going to be allowed to retake his place. It's going to be too dangerous, so he'll have to start where he's gone. That's a new rule for this year. That if you make a mistake under safety car, you have to take the thing. Race Control's issued a penalty for Philip Boak, so that means he's maybe just been slightly ahead of another car that he's been following as the race gets underway, and Rosella bolts.
Rosella got a cracking start and already has 2 or 3 car lengths as the field files through turn 1. There's a little bit of argy-bargy from Brendan Foley squeezing up the inside of Tim Redmond. They all squeeze out the other side, and in fact, Bolger's under pressure immediately from Lewis Wedding as they go through turns 2 and 3.
Rosella under the gun already from the Gravel Rash Racing Lamborghini as they run all line astern down into turn number 5. There's a fair bit of argy-bargy going on. Here's the view from the Higginson Ferrari. Actually saw him right under the rear wing of, I think it was Phil Boak earlier on in the piece, and on the warm-up lap, he was actually, on the formation lap, he was actually trying to save fuel. Look, Higo's got a roadblock here. He can't get through. He's got Redmond on his left, over his left front. He's got Boak on the other side. He's just got to pick a line here, and he can't get through.
Boak got very wide out on the marbles. Well, there aren't any marbles yet, but he was Foley was quite wide there. He just wasn't able to get the power down, get back into the inside of the corner, so he lost the position. But he was well ahead going into the braking zone.
We've got a spin in the back. It is Steve Warwick, who's maybe just got a little bit of a tap. Yeah, we're watching Boak. He's falling back down the field, possibly to redress that position. But it was just a little tap in that little kink at turn 10, that inconsequential corner that ended up having consequences for Steve Warwick. We're going to bring it up now on the replay and see if we can figure out what happened.
So Boak had a really awful start, and he'd fallen through the field. And I think you're right, maybe there's a little bit of incidental contact. Yep, just a little bit of nose to tail. Boak just a little bit anxious to apply the throttle a bit too early. Steve Warwick wasn't quite ready to pick it up just yet, and just sends him a little bit wide there. So I'd expect to see a redress happen, hopefully to take that one into account.
Yeah,
and
it's
it looks,
already-
and that's been done. So that's good, smart driving from Boat, getting it done early. It's one of those rules too that's been in the game for a little while, that you want to try and get that redress done on the same lap. But when it happens so close to the finish line, you really don't have much of an option. You're just going to take the next best opportunity to get the job done and get it done. That's precisely what Boak's completed in that instance. So he's now free to race, but he's probably had the worst start out of everybody.
Rosella just completely changed tacks. He's already out toward a second and a half lead, but it's been scrappy from Rosella. I've seen him run wide at turn 3 and clean up the cones at turn 7. So even though he's just set the fastest lap of the race on the first flying lap, unsurprisingly, he's not necessarily been the clean metronomic Luke Rosella that we've become used to. He has been assisted, of course, by his teammate, wearing Steve Bolger's rear wing like a cheap suit at the moment, just all over the back of the McLaren, and really putting the pressure on to keep Bolger rather looking in his mirrors instead of out the windscreen.
Might be a move on into turn 6 potentially, because Wang got a very good run off turn 3.
McLaren's quite wide, and the wing's sort of at the right height for the not too high Porsche. I don't know if there'll be a move here or not, Bagsy. I think maybe there's Wedding just popping out from behind the rear wing of the McLaren. Just gets a little bit of a slide. Oh, he's got a little bit of a slide job on. Look at the correctiveness on the opposite lock. He had to grab a little bit of it to make it happen. And then puff of smoke. Rosella goes a bit deep. Bolger goes a bit deep. Wedding goes a bit deep. So I got a funny feeling here, guys, that they're all pushing just a little bit too hard at the wrong times, and they're just starting to just wear their tyres a little bit. I think a few drivers coming into this one were going to be a little bit worried that the tyres may go off a bit of full stint. And safety car, so this is really early. And I think it's at the last corner.
It's
we've got
Bolger and Warwick and Foley again. Warwick and Boak, rather.
Oh, no.
and Cracker involved as well. He's actually gone into the pits.
Yeah, now Cracker's gone into the pits. Now the pits are closed, so he's going to have to do a pass-through here. He won't be able to stop. And let's have a look what brought this one undone. So there was a little bit of a check-up here. So Boat goes around the corner. Oh, there was Warwick. It looks like Warwick has got into contact with Cracker, sent Cracker around. Boak's arrived on the scene. There hasn't been enough time for him to get out of it, and he has unfortunately sort of just been caught up in that incident a little bit. So I don't think that one's not on Boat. That'll be a coming together between Warwick and Cracker. Now, what's Cracker done in all of this? Has he actually been in and taken service? No, he's actually done a pass-through. He's done the right thing, and he's actually just gone straight through the pits, and he has not picked up a penalty from that. So Reddy will have been on the cans to him saying, pits are closed, buddy. You just need to get going through. Don't worry about it now. Join the back of the queue, and we'll reassess. Now, importantly, it's very early in the race. I think probably far too early for a stop. Rosella has actually gone through. I'm keeping my eyes on the pit lane, though. I want to see if anybody actually has taken the bait. So here we are. There's the main straight, and everybody so far has gone. Yeah, everybody's going through. There really shouldn't be a lot of cars with damage after all of this.
If your Boak maybe go and Brimmer, and then so you have a shorter last stop and you can jump some people there.
Yep, I would agree with that.
You're only going to lose 2 positions.
And then Cracker's the last man coming through now. So the pits are actually still closed at the moment for Cracker because he hasn't crossed the start-finish line. And there he goes. He's through now. Actually, no one has pitted actually because the safety car actually has just come out of the pit. So that's the reason for that. We've just had to double check and correct that. What's happened was the incident occurred after the leader had gone across the start-finish stripe. So they actually had to do another full lap at a slightly reduced pace so they could pick up the safety car. So this is actually the first lap of safety car running, and when the pits will open. They should open in about 10 to 15 seconds or so. You'll tell because the red X above the number 1 for Luke Rosella will disappear, and then they'll be able to go in. There it goes. So the pits are officially open. Who takes the bait?
I would.
Oh,
I would-
games already.
If I was someone down the field, like a Brenton Foley or anyone behind him, I would definitely take this because what you're getting here, you might sacrifice a bit of track position, but you're getting peace of mind. You know from
there are
this
takers.
point,
There are takers.
you know from this
Only
point,
Warwick
if you
and
pit, you only need to take one more stop. So there's no worry about saving fuel. There's no worry about, trying to breathe on an empty rag, the smell of an oily rag at the end of the race. You know you can get to the end with one more stop here, and you're not sacrificing that much track position. So what have we got? We've got both PBF cars in. We've got Brian Walsh in, and they're the only takers.
Yep, and there was a double stack on there as well. So Foley was in first. Boak had to stack. And is Boak just taking fuel only? I think he is.
Yeah, well, why not? Why would you take tyres? You've only been on these tyres for 4 minutes, for 2 racing laps.
Yeah, I mean, you've come in from behind the safety car, though, too, Flood. So, I mean, if you come in behind the safety car, you may as well take the tyres as well. Like, you're going to catch up to the back of the field, and then you're on tyres that are just as old as all the cars in front of you anyway. For me, it's a no-brainer because the length of time you're stationary in the lane is covered by the fact that there's a safety car doing laps out there. So you may as well.
Yeah. I mean, I guess, but I don't really. It wouldn't be the first priority for me. The first priority is okay. I have peace of mind now. I don't have to worry about getting to the end or stretching a fuel stop. I can just, as Brenton Foley runs innocuously wide through turn 5 on his way back to catching the safety car train.
Tyres, eh?
Yeah, and he did take some tyres actually. Foley took tyres, Boak did not. So I think Foley's just maybe trying to do a little bit too much fuel saving, I think is probably what that came down to. And as he tries to keep the pace up so he catches the back of the train, but so he doesn't burn off as much fuel. I wouldn't be surprised to see if there's a bit of top-ups going on throughout the next lap or two, depending on how long the safety car actually stays out for.
I mean, you might as well come straight back in and top up again.
Really? I don't think so. You only need to pit once. You only need to find, if you are doing a 30-minute stint fairly regularly, you only need to find 5 minutes, and a pit stop under safety car finds you 5 minutes of running. So I don't really see the need to come in and top it off every single time, because what you're doing then is you're just giving away track position to no one. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're last, but like also...
Yeah, otherwise it's like Boak's last at the moment, so...
Yeah, I mean, if you already know you can get to the end of one stop, you don't really need to keep topping it up.
Yeah, it's less stationary time for your one pit stop though.
But like one lap is 0.3 of a second in terms of fuel burn. So yeah, I don't know. I don't see the point. I'm surprised that more people haven't pit. Truth be told, I'm surprised that some of those who were really struggling with fuel economy earlier in the season, those mid-engine cars, the Audi, the Lamborghini, I'm surprised they haven't come in, as well as Brody or Cracker. If I was anyone after 6th place, I would have definitely taken that pit stop.
Yeah, if I was 10th on back, I would have taken that one as well. So that would have been Steve Warwick, Glenn Miles, Cracker, and possibly Rody, I think, as well. Probably use some of that opportunity to get it done. I mean, it's there. You don't have anything to lose, whereas the front half a dozen guys have got track position to cede, and then a whole bunch of cars to repass. When essentially they come out, they then would have been relying on everybody else that was still on the track in front of them to stop for the whole field to recycle through.
And I guess now, I guess now the question for the front guys is the safety car enough to save you that second stop? Is the length of the safety car gonna save you that much as we go green
safety cars
this
in.
time around?
It took a very late dive as well. I don't think Rosella was quite ready for it. He very nearly ran into the back of the safety car as it was about to pull into lane.
Safety car did not do the best job of traversing that final corner.
No, definitely
into
not.
the pit lane.
We've got the whole field on the front straight here, so we'll go back to green flag running. Rosella's going to take it right down to the line like he has done in the last couple of safety car restarts, and away we go yet again.
Had a big concertina at the back and almost had a massive accident, but everyone managed to file into turn 1 fairly well. Looks like Boak and Foley both having a go on people, so 1 position gained already, paying off for that pit stop. I think Boak is now back to where he was before. He's actually making a second move into turn 2, so Boak 2 positions, 2 corners. At this rate, he'll be done by the end of the lap.
Yep, and Foley's done the same, so he moved up a spot as well. Boak's moved up another one, and they've now put the 2 Wildcat Playboy Ferraris behind Foley. Boak will be the next beneficiary. And yeah, there's a lot of weaving going on. I've just noticed that as well a bit further up, just on the other screen here. Mainly from Rosella out in front. Maybe he's not got the tyre temperature in the front that he would ideally have liked. And
it's running wide.
And here we go. So back to the lead queue here. So Rosella from Bolger, and then Wedding tucked in there, then Termo. So it's 2 by 2. Higginson's moved up to P6 as a result of all the kerfuffle that went on a little bit earlier with Foley taking the gamble and coming out of the top sort of 7 or 8 spots to have his stop under safety car. He's actually hanging on to Tim Redmond, doing a pretty decent job here as well. While the cars ahead of him decide to continue to scrap, and we're on to lap 9. Bolger still, oh geez, the McLaren looks rather twitchy out of turn 2 there, doesn't it?
Yes, I'm just going to completely change tack for a moment. Foley tried to make a move on Cracker into turn 1, got it all wrong, made contact with Cracker, and now drops to 12th place.
Yeah, he's dropped down the field as well. He's actually swapped places with his teammate too. I've just noticed Boak sort of getting ahead of him, and the next man for him is going to be Steve Warwick. Let's actually have a look at this battle here as they head down toward turn 5. Very firmly planted on the brakes goes Phil Boak. Nicely done. Gets it stopped. Beautiful block pass. Takes the line completely away from Warwick on the run through 5. Warwick will be sitting right in the wheel tracks there, and gets a nice tow actually. A little bit of overlap here. Boak's going to have to leave him a little bit of space because the Aston has a little bit of poke in a straight line, but bails early. He was on the narrow line, bailed quite early, and Foley wasn't quite ready for it, I don't think. He was sort of trying to line that pass up around the outside and wasn't expecting the Aston to back off the way that he did.
A lot of people are struggling to follow through turn 6. We just watched Termo was right up behind Wedding, who was in turn right up behind Bolger. And they just both, Wedding started washing wide, and then Termo had it even worse. Almost went off the track. So it's really you need to either get that move done before turn 6 or go a bit easier into turn 6 to be able to follow it closely.
With the Gravel Rash Racing car followed by Termo. Look at the all the exit curve there. That's that exit of 3, and essentially what is the approach to the inconsequential turn 4. Some drivers really abusing the limits out that far, and actually surprised that the game was big for some of the track cuts as well.
Yeah, it is a bit of a peculiar one. It might be just that the tarmac itself on the exit there is counted as the track. So for those who have discovered that and have been brave in practice and qualifying and know exactly where to place their car, they're getting a bit of an advantage. As we're still watching Termo and in his quest to put pressure on Lewis Wedding.
On wide. Sorry, turn 7.
That seems to be catching a few people out turn 7 as we're still watching Termo. It looks like the top 4 have kind of gotten equidistant to each other at the moment, whereas there is some very willing battling further down the pack. In fact, we just had both PBF cars try to make a move around the outside of Rhodey in turn 10. Boak made it happen. Foley not quite, but Foley's going to get the move done down into turn 1. Is he? No, Rhodey goes very deep under brakes and almost too deep. Ooh, closed the door on the exit there. So he's really trying to hold his own as Rhodey as he's battling over 10th place.
He gained that track position by not pitting, and he's really holding on to it quite well so far. He's, that being said, it looks like he's probably going to, the battle will end here. Although much better drive for Rhodey coming out of the inconsequential corner. And yeah, he's managing to remain ahead.
Rhodey's picked up his pace in the last race or two as well. We saw him fighting really spiritedly with Will Devonish and 1 or 2 others at Portland, and pretty much boxed on. And like when he got served up and carved up, I think it was by Devonish, he gave it back to him. And I was like, I think all of us in the box were applauding, standing and applauding, saying, "Where's this Rhodey been for the last 2 or 3 years?" He gives up position there though to Brenton Foley, and now he's got to contend with Steve Warwick. Plenty of brake blocking going on into turn 7. And next up for the 2 Mercedes-Benzes is the Lamborghini of Darren Loughnane and Cam Parrott. These two have been going along quite all right in the last 6 or so laps since pretty much since the safety car went in. All fair. Great switchback. Very nicely done. Very acutely aware there about the gap and what was going on. Foal was Darren Loughnane, but he's about to be mugged. That little unfortunate moment there for the over and under opened the door for Foley to sneak up the inside, and that's a mugging if I ever saw one.
Yeah, unfortunately, it was.
He's out wide.
He did the over and under, but what that did for him is put him on the outside for the next corner. So Boak just held him high and wide, and Foley just was like, "Thank you very much, teammate. I'll fill that gap." So 2 positions in 2 corners, and then a mistake at the next corner, and he's got Steve Warwick and Rody for company lickety split.
And off goes the 2 Mercedes. Oh, a little bit of a coming together too, as Rody tried in vain to fight back with Steve Warwick, and Warwick's on the grass. So that's a little bit, and Warwick might be out of this race.
He has come to a complete stop out there. And
we'll have a look at that one again on the replay, because that's a little bit, that was a sort of a slightly awkward moment on track camera. So Loughnane was clear. Oh, I don't know about that one. That's a bit of a weird one for Rody. It's very, and there goes Warwick off to the side there, wondering if there was some sort of damage or something terminal there.
He has retired back to the pits. I don't know if that's, you can straight away point blame there, because it did look like they both, realised there was a gap and went in to cover it off, and then that caused the contact. So I'm not sure if you can apportion blame to one person or the other there.
It looked to me that Rody put his car there and had an overlap, and then Warwick was focusing on trying to get an overlap on the car ahead and didn't realise that there was a camo-clad Lexus next to him.
Maybe
it was because it was camo-clad.
Yeah, maybe already pre-committed to the turn-in point. I think maybe what it might have been. Cam Parrott just pulled out of the off the racing line and let the 2 PBF Mercedes Benzes through, and then Foley. They were bump drafting each other. I thought for a minute Foley was actually going to make a pass, but he didn't actually go through with the move. There's a bit of a bump draft to say, well, I'll just give you a shove, old NASCAR style, and we'll see if we can make an extra 10th or 2 on this lap. The next target for them is going to be the Higginson Ferrari, who's about half the length of the front straight ahead. So when you equate that to a time deficit, you'll see it on the bottom there, it is 4.4 seconds, the difference between 6th and 7th.
I've just been watching the front group, Nether, and I've kind of noticed a little something. At one point, the McLaren seemed to have a bit more pace, but the Porsches have both been knocking out extremely consistent lap times, and I think that's what's going to be their greatest strength at the moment. We both know that Luke Rosella and Lewis Wedding are almost metronomic, we've said a few times over the course of this season.
Higginson has made a mistake. Nathan Higginson, we give him plenty of airtime, and he's just gone way too deep, and now the Benzes are all over him.
Just to quickly finish my point, what I have seen is Lewis Wedding completely makes a mockery of what I was about to say by running wide through turn 7, is that the Porsches Wedding and we've got a yellow flag, and that
actually
might have
Bolger.
Been Steve Bolger. He's run wide at turn 7 entirely.
He ran completely deep and had to give up position to not only Wedding and Turmo, but to Redmond as well. We were just watching the pass with the. We were just watching the Mercedes Benz. The bullying of Higginson going on, and I actually picked this up on the replay here. So here is what happened to Steve Bolger into the inner loop, just way too hot, completely missed the braking point, and spins it out. Wedding was actually quite wide in the background, and then the rejoin there, and Bolger realising he had to give that one up.
Yeah, I was watching Wedding. That's who I had my camera trained on. I saw him run wide, and then I saw the yellow flag, and yeah, there we go. So what I was about to say was that Bolger and Turmo have been quicker, but have been less consistent. So they've been losing that time as quickly as they've been gaining that time. Whereas Luke Rosella, his last 3 laps, a 19.8, 19.7, 19.6, he's really rolling into his pace, and now the 2 Porsches are rolling away with it.
Turmo is now left, I guess, on his own to chase and hunt down Lewis Wedding for this one. and Steve Bolger's got a fair bit of work to do. So he finds himself only about a second in a rear of Redmond, so he's got heaps and heaps of time to play catch up and basically get himself back into contention here. Go back to what Bagsy and I are watching, which was the bullying of Nathan Higginson by the Mercedes-Benzes of Foley and Boak. Higginson's actually decided to try and stick with them. He's getting a little bit leery on the loud pedal though.
He's really working that hard. We've seen that from Higginson quite a lot. The fact that he does love a bit of right foot action, does steer.
And a lock up there as well going into one. That's not going to hurt the tyres. And then the planted right foot oversteer on the exit as well. That's not going to help the tyres either. Back to the battle, sorry, Bagsy. Back to the battle for second and third. Turmo's having a red hot crack here now at Lewis Wedding. I think that he feels that maybe Wedding might be backing him up a little bit. And there's his teammate in the background with Tim Redmond. They're just coming up and over the rise in the back straight at the moment. So they've got visual sight of this pair. I think Turmo maybe thinks he is capable of pulling a move somewhere at this point. Slightly different lines though. Turmo trying to carry some momentum. Wedding looking for a late apex through the inner loop. And great helicopter shots really giving us an idea about how the way that these two gentlemen are driving these cars.
Yeah, Turbo seems to be happy to follow Lewis at the moment. He doesn't really want to... I don't think he wants to give Lewis a carrot to follow. He's just happy with Lewis being the carrot and just keeping in those wheel tracks and keeping everything relatively smooth.
Sorry, Bagsy, both of them had a big wiggle on the exit of turn 2 there and really having to grab the car and collect it all back up. So, yeah, they're really pushing hard though, even if they're... Oh, as Turmo has another big moment.
Oh, he's
that's,
gone.
Again, half a second loss just in that.
Oh, he was almost gone there, wasn't he? So,
yeah,
free kick. The Gravel Rush Racing McLarens are just continuing to give their opposite numbers a big free kick in this one. I was about to say, I think Turmo was pulling the Lewis Wedding strategy there of just following in the wheel tracks and just saving some fuel.
Lewis not.
Oh, Wedding's off. He's gone. He's in the boonies. He's way deep. And that's on the approach to the inner loop. So he's done that on the exit of 6. He's gone flying and his tyres are a little bit ruined. He's given that spot up to Turmo finally now. And now he's within sight of Redmond and Bolger. There they are.
Yeah, surprisingly, he didn't lose a huge amount of time in the end with that. He's not super far behind Turmo as we're going to get the replay. And I think he just understeered wide through turn 6. I don't know if he was going too fast or he just lost it a little bit.
Yeah, he had a wiggle mid-corner. And maybe just, I'm not sure if he was partially on throttle or trying to pick the throttle up. But yeah, the car sort of, it looked like it turned okay for the first part of the corner. And then all of a sudden it just started veering off to the right, and maybe just as the throttle got picked up through part of the thing, is maybe it's a fraction too early.
I think Luke Rosella's also had a moment, a really, really slow first sector of 24 flat, which is, you know, a 7-8 tenths slower than what we've seen. And yeah, he's run wide around the outside of turn 1, so not quite all onto the grass, but still not the most clean lap for Luke Rosella either. But even still, he enjoys a 5-second lead over Turmo after both Steve Bolger and Lewis Wedding, who's really struggling with the rear end of that Porsche, have made mistakes.
But tune the balance out into that car pretty quick smart, because Steve Bolger, about a half a lap ago, just caught the aftermath of it, has put a pass on Tim Redmond. He saw that Wedding had come back to him. He's like, right, I'm going to pull this trigger now, because if Wedding's starting to struggle, I might be able to catch back up to the rear and put a little bit of pressure on him like he was doing to me about a half dozen laps ago. And look at that, there's the Benzes. They're in the back. They're not out of this yet either. They've actually been lapping fairly consistently. I'm looking at the times here. Last time around, they were the fastest of all the cars ahead of them. So they had done a 20.2 and a 20.4, and the best lap of the cars ahead of them was in the high, sort of mid to high 20s. So they've got some pace still, the Benzes. They're not the quickest in terms of their overall pace. They're not setting the timing charts completely alight, and Their tyres are not that much better off than the cars in front of them, but they are starting to just eke into contention here a little bit. I think the fuel that they put in at the safety car stops may very well play a factor later in this race. It might elevate them about 2 or 3 spots by the time everything shakes out.
And it's something that I tend to harp on about in endurance racing. It doesn't really matter how quick you are over one lap if you're not consistent. And while Foley and Boak have had their little difficulties working their way back through the field, they have been consistent. They've had the opportunity to lap in some clean space and sort of, treat this as a time attack, much like Luke Rosella is at the moment. So they found their way through as Brenton Foley, again, makes a complete mockery of what I'm saying by running wide between turn 8 and 9. But they might be able to play themselves into a good position, especially if the likes of Tim Redmond, Steve Bolger, Lewis Wedding and Turmo find themselves having to make 2 stops because they've been battling too hard and not concentrating on their fuel usage.
Very possible.
Yeah. Well, just like about Cam Parrott and who's behind Parrott?
Darren Loughnane.
Darren Loughnane are having. There's someone round just ahead of them. I believe that's Higginson.
There he is.
So what has been a 2-car battle that had been going for the last 3 laps is becoming a 3-car battle.
That's about.
Higginson.
I thought it was about to become a 3-car battle. Now that was on the exit of turn 2 that he did. So turn 1 that he did that. On his wide again, and now he's big tail happy moment for Loughnane behind Cam Parrott. He was very busy in the cockpit after that one and has dropped now off the back of the Maple Leaf Simsport Audi.
Wedding's had another wide moment in turn 7. It hasn't cost him the position to Bolger though.
No, it hasn't.
Cost him the gap he had.
It's cost him the time. That's the important thing. It's cost him the time to Steve Bolger. So get a true reflection of how bad that actually was for Wedding when he gets across the line this time around. So 21-1 and a 20.5 for Bolger. Big swing. It was actually 0.4 of a second. That was the cost in that last sector alone. It was a 10th in the sector before that, and it was a 10th in the sector before that. So he lost actually 6/10 overall on that last lap to car 87.
Lewis seems to be struggling with the overall balance of that car. I've seen a few understeer moments. I've seen lock tyres, and we saw the wiggle in the mid-corner at turn 6, which was an oversteer moment. It just does not seem like that Loose Simsport Porsche is nearly as happy as what we've seen at other rounds of the series.
Brody's in the pits. He didn't hit the wall though.
Well, I was about to say, has he actually come in for a stop? Because this was your pick here, Flood, and yes, he's in the lane. So not Flood, Bagsy. So ding, ding, ding. Chocolates to Bagsy, or in the case of a lottery, hot dog, we have a winner. And Brody is the first man to stop.
So, like I say, Rosella's been having the same issues Wedding has. They're not as pronounced. I think it's because he's just a bit more comfortable with the car than Lewis is. And the mistakes he's making aren't as dire because he's just a bit more locked in with the car.
Yeah, Brody's got to lay down here too, gentlemen. We should probably be making people aware of that. This is now a situation where if you're down the tail end of the field and you are coming in for a stop, then you are going to go a lap down. So for Brody, that's him. And then ahead of Brody, it's actually Brian Walsh and Glenn Miles. They're the next 2 that are really within striking distance of our leader at the moment. And I'm expected if they're going to come in for a stop, then they will be going a lap down pretty quickly. But importantly, Flood, before we go back to the other point you're about to make, the time on the clock. 39 minutes now is what remains in this race. We've had 2 or 3 laps under safety car. It's going to be pit stop time soon.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think for Rody this is still a little too early. We've had a 70-minute race with a formation lap, which means that if you're pitting around 40 minutes to go, you're just not going to be able to make it home. So I want to see cars get to at least the 35-minute mark. But as well, we had that safety car, so we really, if I was behind the wheel, I'd want to be getting to 32 or 30 minutes remaining if I could. That would be where I'm at. We've now got on screen Lewis Wedding just following Turmo with Steve Bolger right on his trail. Once again, though, Turmo had a bit of a gap and Steve Bolger was right on the tail of that Porsche, but they both made little errors, and Lewis Wedding has found his way up the bungee cord and is now on the Turmo end of the bungee cord as opposed to the Bolger end of the bungee cord.
Up the bungee cord, that's a new one.
Haven't you heard that expression? They're connected by a bungee cord. You know, it might stretch, but it's all the same length.
That's the elastic gap that I've been. That's what I've been taught that it was. Anyway, that's what you say. It's like castle and castle and all those sorts of things.
Exactly.
We'll debate that later. I mean, we've had our flirtatious moments before where we've had different terminologies, and that's it. So we'll worry about that after the racing's over, I think.
This is quite a willing battle pack now. It's once again Loose Sim Sport Gravel Rash, Loose Sim Sport Gravel Rash, but it looks like Lewis has found some balance, or the balance has come back to him in this stage of the race, and he's looking significantly more racy than he was 3 or 4 laps ago.
I think it's the control, I think, Flood. I think that's what it is. He needed to have the... Oh, as we say that, off goes car 51. So Turmo's gone for a trip through the gravel, a la what his teammate did probably about a half a dozen laps ago. He coughs up a spot to Tim Redmond, and now all that sort of bit of work is over and done. Now Lewis Wedding hasn't got a carrot in front of him to help him save some fuel, and now it's all swinging back the other way. Bolger can be the one to tail Wedding for a little bit without Turmo leading the queue. And this sort of is a bit of an interesting thing here too, Bagsy, because this means that team game's going to be a bit difficult to play here. Normally when you've got one car in front, one car behind, you can afford to play the team game, and then that sort of puts the car in the middle in a really awkward spot for the pit stop. But now when it's a straight up fight, it's basically 1v1.
Although he hasn't lost that much time, so I think you could still force it. Spare a thought for Tim Redmond, who's had all three of Bolger, Turmo and Wedding go off in front of him, and he's passed them only to be able to get past again. So he's hoping they start doing it more often, because he keeps being the beneficiary of that.
And Glenn Miles, I think, has been in the lane here as well, because he's just about to be lapped by whoops! And I was about to say on the other side, I know what you were umming and ahhing about there, Flood. It was Miles taking to the grass to let
Walshy taking to the
grass. Sorry, to let the two faster cars through.
And almost collecting Lewis Wedding in the process, I might add.
Yes.
Just a quick thing as well, something I've noticed, qualifying laps we saw in the 18.6s, 18.3s,
yes.
Practice laps we were seeing in the 19.1s, race laps at the moment are in the 20s. Lewis Wedding that lap a 21 flat, 21.1 for Steve Bolger, 21 flat for Tim Redmond. Fastest man on track was Luke Rosella, but even still a 20.1. Everyone is off the pace here. They're really looking to stretch this fuel stint right out. On the flip side, Brenton Foley's the fastest man on track with a 20 flat. So the AMGs are trying to make the use of their fuel that they took underneath the safety car and see if they can play it into the position. And look at where Foley is now. He's just behind this battle as Tim Redmond's around.
Redmond goes. So... And now, was there contact there? Turmo's slowing down to redress this. So that's the end of that. So now, Turmo with that off just a little while ago, that unfortunately means that, as what you were coming back to a bit earlier, probably about 2 minutes ago, Bagsy, that Turmo might have been in a position where they could force it. And yeah, Rosella pulls the trigger. So that essentially means that the Gravel Rash Racing McLarens cannot force the hand of Loose Sim Sport and Lewis Wedding. Oh, Rosella's missed his box too. That's costly.
Oh no.
He went
forward
by...
That's a mistake that you don't need.
No, he went forward by too much, and then he had to grab reverse and go backwards. It cost him a good 2 seconds or so. And he's on the tyre changing part as well. So, all right. We've gotten to the half distance mark, albeit with some safety car intervention. Is that enough?
Rosella so far is the only one in the lane, which is very interesting to me. Everyone else has been able to go longer.
Yeah, which is very surprising, because usually Rosella's the fuel whisperer, especially in that Porsche.
Yes. Higginson's gone
Cracker
through.
in the lane as well.
Cracker's come in, yeah.
Yep, so
I wonder if Rosella has done the math and has figured out that he can get home from here, and he's making the play to try and bring some other people in ahead of where they're comfortable. I wonder if that's the game that he's playing here. Or he's just doing whatever he wants and everyone else is immaterial.
So he's left the lane now. He's currently in 10th place. He's crossed the line. He's on his way out now. So now the fun part starts. Now we get to see what Lewis Wedding and Steve Bolger decide to pull. There goes Wedding. Oh, that's an aggressive entry.
Very late.
And does he get it stopped for the line? He does. Very, very nice. And he's in the lane, as Sue's Cracker. That releases Bolger into the lead, so he's going to lead his first laps for the night. Anybody else coming with the Loose Sim Sport Porsches, gentlemen?
Not look like it.
No one from that front group, and then the next two on track is Nathan Higginson and Cameron Parrott, and they're just coming through the last corner now.
Yep, so I've got eyes, and no, they've gone through. So two has Darren Lochner, I think. Yes, so... Oh, Wedding, sorry, what? I just noticed that Wedding was in the lane, and something wasn't quite right. He actually had to grab reverse, so I want to have a look. I want to have a look at that.
Steering his wheel back and forth. Something's not going right there in that car.
Yeah, so I'm just going to accelerate this forward a little bit there. He wasn't in the box. He thought he maybe was getting fuel or getting stopped or something. Oh, no, he missed the box. That's twice. It's affected both the Loose Sim Sport Porsches.
Wow, that's
mega. That is a mega mistake. That's worse than Rosella's mistake. That's going to be extremely costly. Bolger's now reacting, and Wedding's still in the lane. So Bolger's got a full lap in before he comes in. He'll be shocked. He won't know what the hell's going on.
That can't be a coincidence. Both of them making the same mistake in such a big way, that can't be a coincidence. Something has gone wrong there, and it is played Loose Sim Sport and Lewis Wedding
and what makes it
completely
worse,
out of it.
And what makes it worse is Wedding's got blue flags at the moment. Wedding's got blue flags for Redmond and Turmo and everybody behind him. So he's really got to illustrate here that he can drive away from this group, and he's got pace to do it because there's blue flags on display. Because the cars behind, they're on the lead lap.
You know what, the bigger indication how much time he's lost, Rosella's just come through the end of turn 7 now, and Wedding's only just coming into turn 5, so it's essentially half the lap in terms of distance, and they were a lot closer than that before.
This is going to be a get out of jail for Turmo, I think, here, gents. I think you'll find, because he's on the lead lap. He probably also, and this will actually elevate the Benzes, I think, through as well. This will elevate Foley and Boat through ahead of Wedding, if my sort of mental math is correct with how this plays out. Steve Bolger's left the lane, by the way, so he's in 8th place. And is effectively a net second. He has actually gained overall on Luke Rosella quite substantially. We'll get a timing intermediate update in a few seconds' time. And let's see what it is. It's actually 7.1 seconds, so there's been a fairly handy gain there for Bolger overall. He's gained, of course, 2 seconds by virtue of Rosella having a little bit of a fumble in pit lane.
Well, I see a safety car right now would be awful for Wedding.
Oh, it'd be terrible.
That's gonna
could be absolutely
cost
terrible.
him something shocking.
Because he'll be trapped a lap down, and he'll be relying on everybody ahead to go in. He needs the...
He'd be relying on Foley to go in, and we're expecting at some point, as we've got Cameron Parrott in the pits, that Foley... Well, we're expecting all of these guys in at least one more time. So Foley's already made a pit. He pit under that early safety car, and he's 6 seconds out of the field. And that's who Wedding needs to pit for him to be back on the lead lap. But of course, seeing as Foley has already made that pit stop and has a little bit more fuel compared to the people he's racing against, he might choose not to pit. He might, in fact, sacrifice his race to make Lewis Wedding's night hell.
Well, let's think about this, Bagsy. Given that they came in sort of inside the first 10 to 12 minutes, where do we think realistically they're going to be able to get to the benders? Sorry?
Yeah, as Turmo comes in. Yeah, they should. I mean, I think they'll jump Turmo if they do calculate their fuel correctly, because they were.
Oh, not like that. They're not. Brenton Foley's off at turn 1, and he's going to let Lewis Wedding pass to unlap himself. Is he down into turn 2? It's very close to run thing. Lewis Wedding's got a head of steam, and he's going to be wanting to get past Foley. They're very close on the exit. It might have even been a little bit of a touch there. The Mercedes runs wide. The Porsche's on the inside. And Wedding is going to get his lap back. No, he slots back in behind. So Foley, despite making quite a big mistake at turn 1, is going to be... Oh, he's got the Porsche all the way up his behind. This is a pretty big moment in the race. If Lewis Wedding can get his lap back here, he could be back in the mix for something later on.
He needs to.
No.
I was thinking he was sort of wondering to see how close he could get to Turmo before Turmo left the lane. Turmo's on the move right now, so for Wedding, he's going to try and hone in on the back of the McLaren very quickly and
gets it.
So he gets that job done at turn 7. Turmo's leaving the lane now, so he's officially on the main straight now and heading towards turn 1. There goes Foley into the pits. There goes Redmond. So they're done. That means Boak's got to go around another lap.
And he does.
And it does. And the field's slowly starting to cleanse itself here. So Turmo's got to do a full lap to move himself up the order and ensure basically that he can be basically firmly entrenched in the top 3. Where is our effective race leader? So Luke Rosella is just coming round the pole now and on his way to turn 7.
Turn 7.
He has 8 seconds over Steve Bolger, who has 16 seconds over Turmo. I didn't realize the gap was that big. Obviously, that incident with Tim Redmond had a larger time loss than we had expected, lads. As Foley gets underway now, is Tim Redmond going to jump him in the pits? No,
Redmond came in behind Foley anyway in the pits, so Foley on his way down the lane now. Where's he going to slot in? He's leaving the lane now.
Just behind Bolger.
Just behind Bolger and ahead of Redmond, Turmo and Wedding. So as I said, the Benzers have made a jump here by the own goal that Lou Simsport have kicked.
Redmond might jump. Well, Redmond's almost jumped Turmo. It's going to be very close into the first corner.
That's actually Turmo jumping Redmond there.
It is.
It's type sequence.
That's an undercut.
So yeah, I keep forgetting that everyone keeps crashing in.
Yeah.
Yes, that's an undercut effectively for Turmo. So he's only just managed to make that work too. That was a very closely run thing between the two of them, and a mistake either way could have ultimately led those two positions on screen being the other way around.
Oak is in the pit lane.
Oak in the lane, and I'm expecting Higginson in this lap as well, and then that will cleanse the field. Yep, there we go. Higginson in. So the last two effective cars that are on the lead lap are effectively stopping. The Ferrari should go past the Benz in the lane. There it is. There's Phil Boak. And that means our effective race leader is officially Luke Rosella. There he goes, back to the number 1 position and across the line. And now we will see how everything shakes out. So Steve Bolger was just there in the background.
On his way.
And Bolger goes through to P2. Boak is still showing P3, although that for a brief moment now goes to Foley. Now. So Foley goes through to P3. Boak's going to be P4 on the road, and I don't think he's going to be really threatened here. And out he comes, and there's Turmo and Redmond in the background. So my suspicions were right. The Benzers have benefited massively from stopping earlier. Not only that, they've benefited from the mistakes of others on pit lane as well.
The real question now is, can they catch Bolger and pass him and get a 2-3 for themselves on the podium? It's probably going to be a big ask because there's 11 seconds between Boak and Bolger, but only 4 between Foley and Bolger. So if Foley gets his skates on, there's every chance he will manage to get that second place.
Here is
Clean Air has been the name of the game for the 2 PBF Race Engineering guys, and they played themselves into a great position. We've got 24 minutes left, guys. We've been running for 45 minutes. It's felt nowhere near like that. It's been pretty well action-packed, but there's always something that we've been looking at, whether it's been on the timing screens or on the racetrack. And at the moment, it's looking like the Mercedes could find something out of this where they didn't qualify all that well, and they had struggles coming through the field, and they might pop out with, as Bagsy said, a double podium.
Foley said his personal best lap last time around, 19.9 versus Bolger's 20.5, gentlemen. And all of that lap came in the final sector for the number 074 Vodafone-backed Mercedes-Benz. So it's on here. I'm liking your thinking. Oh, Foley way wide.
Oh, Brian Walsh even wider there.
Brian Walsh even wider, you're not wrong there. This gap is starting to slowly erode. They're pretty well matched in the first sector. This time around it was Bolger 23.06, Foley 23.05. So nothing in it in sector 1 between the men in second and third place. Bolger trips the second split, timing intermediate at a 26.4. Foley comes through. He does a 26.7, so he had a very poor exit off of one of those turns and dropped a little bit of time. So this time it's swinging back to Bolger. Advantage, though, last time around went to Foley in the final sector. So let's see what the times are as well and see if Bolger has realised what's going on and if he's responding. There's the car hunting him down in the background, Brenton Foley. Bolger with a 20.2, which in that lap was a 30.8 in the last sector, which was the same type of sector he sat last time. Foley, 30.133 and a purple sector in the last sector, if you don't mind, and a 19.933, resetting his personal best. This is on, gentlemen. This is going to get really close at the flag if it stays like this.
Yeah, gap's under 4 seconds now between Bolger and Foley. So Foley's finding something. He doesn't have to conserve. He doesn't have to save any fuel or any tyres or anything because he was able to pit a lot later. Whereas we still got a question mark over whether or not Bolger needs to save fuel. So it's going to be very, very tight here between Foley and Bolger. Phil Boak, just by the way, 20.6. So not quite the same pace as Foley has, but he did gain just a little bit on Bolger last lap around. It wasn't a 20.6, it was a 20.246.
Yeah, you're not wrong. So Bolger, the important thing for Boak is he's actually quite comfortable in P4 at the moment. He's got quite a handy margin over this two pair that are coming along behind him at the moment. About 6 seconds is the gap. Actually, I was about to say, I thought it was 6 seconds. I thought he was just ahead, but no, that's the number 69 at Glenn Miles that's about to be put a second lap down by these two on screen. Actually, not a second lap down. They'll be lapping him anyway because he's only 1 lap down.
And just by the way, Tim Redmond now back ahead of Turmo as well. So something's gone on there. We missed the pass, but Redmond has that 5th place. Boat this time. Oh, sorry. Sorry, Nether. Boat this time in 19.9, Foley in 19.9, Bolger at 20 flat. So Bolger is responding. It's just a matter of how long he can maintain that pace for now.
Yes, agree. He's got to be able to. He's got to basically make the tyres last probably the better part of another 3 or so laps longer. And obviously he's carrying more fuel as well, whereas the Mercedes-Benzes have probably carried a bit less fuel. They've had to put less fuel on board here, so they are running a bit lighter. Look at Turmo menacing the back of the Acura as they came out of turn 3 and 4. Oh, twitch right at the critical moment as well. And that may just put him a fraction too far behind the Acura to really make use of this slipstream down into the bowl and just elects to stay where he's at. There's Lewis Wedding just over the back in shot. So he's slowly, I think, just starting to ratchet up the lap times. What did he do last time around? 19.9 relative to 2 in front of him, 20.1. So he needs to probably be doubling the amount of time that he's gaining over these two to make any real meaningful impression towards the end of the race.
Just quickly, that lap around, 19.9 for Steve Bolger, 20.1 for Brenton Foley, 20.1 for Phil Boak. So Bolger has responded and now has the ascendancy. No lap time for Tim Redmond, so he picked up a track cut with that wild moment at turn 3.
He did pick up a track cut with that one there. Bagsy's keeping his eye on a couple of other things going on down the field. What have you got for us, Bagsy?
Yes, actually, apart from what we've been watching, there's not exactly a huge amount of other things happening. There is the little battle going on. Brody's almost catching up to Parrott and Higginson, but it's that's been going back. People keep making mistakes and dropping the gap up.
A little bit of a... Oh, actually, sorry, gentlemen. I'm going to go back to a little replay here because, yeah, I've just seen Lewis Wedding coming across some lap traffic, and I'm not sure if this was all on. I think this was all on his own. It was coming up to Glenn Miles. Look at this for an action. Got too far on the curb, and was very lucky not to actually wipe Miles out along with him. I was keeping an eye on him, going, "What happened to Wedding?" The camera hadn't switched, and that's what happened. Now, I'm not sure if it's going to be a case of I don't know. Actually, I don't know whether or not that'll end up in the steward's review or not. It might potentially. I would say that Lewis may be slightly aggrieved when he came across the Ferrari there, but he came across him so suddenly, though. That's the bit that got me. I don't think Miles was quite ready for it.
And, well, I don't know what case Miles has to answer for. He was on the racing line. He didn't move. Well, Lewis just found himself in a rough spot, went over the curb and spun the car. I don't think Miles... Well, Miles' presence maybe spooked him, but I don't think Miles caused that accident.
No, I don't think so either. I think maybe that second thoughts, I think maybe Lewis maybe cranked the wheel a little bit too hard to the left, trying to carry a bit too much speed. And of course, with the rear engine Porsche, you sort of get a bit too aggressive with it sometimes, and it'll just go.
Especially if you've got the rear wheel hanging off the curb.
Yes. Right, here we go. Change of position for positions 5 and 6. Turmo nudges ahead in the McLaren for Gravel Rash Racing. Takes that line away from Redmond. Right at the critical moment, Redmond had to check out of it and try and go the slightly long way around. So you try the resend here at turn 7? No, not on this occasion. Turmo holds. So up to P5 goes the McLaren. And this is coming back to what we were talking about before racing commenced tonight here, gentlemen. The battle bid for 2nd and 3rd overall between Gravel Rash Racing and PBF. At the moment, points are in favour of PBF, but every point counts. This is what it is for Turmo. Every point in that team's championship is going to count and keep them in the fight, and maybe just far enough ahead by the time they get to the end of round 6.
By the way, these guys have history as well, Turmo and Tim Redmond. Redmond causing Turmo plenty of headaches in the S-Class of the Super Series that ran last year. Turmo was on for a class victory, a championship victory in that class before Redmond decided that he was going to take his prowess into the S-Class and really schooled the field for quite a lot of the season. Turmo took 1 or 2 race victories, but on the whole, Redmond just had the mocker on him. So I think Turmo's really looking to get one back over Redmond and is making sure at this point that he wants to stay ahead as Redmond gets right up under the rear wing of that McLaren as they come into turn 6, but has to settle behind and stay there through the corner. Only 15 minutes left, lads. We're getting very close to the final throws of this race.
And Bolger slowly losing time still. 7/10 on, I say slowly, 7/10 on that lap.
Foley
a very poor final sector.
Foley set a new PB for himself as well, 19.760. So Foley's still got plenty of energy and plenty of life left in those tyres.
Before the lap times disappear now, though, I want to say in the first sector it was 1/10, in the second sector it was 100th. 7/10 in that last sector Foley gained back. So that's where Bolger's struggling.
I'm wondering, is Bolger fuel saving or something a little bit in that last sector? Because that's such a huge time deficit between 2 cars. Oh, I don't know what to say.
I feel like it'd be a weird spot to fuel save, honestly.
Yeah, or maybe he's just getting on the power a little bit late. I'm not sure here. As we quickly go back to this battle for the championship heavyweight slugfest between 5th and 6th. Turmo and Redmond. Redmond had a look up the inside at 5, and now no one's got the slipstream, and now it's a game of chicken down the back straight into turn 6.
Redmond's got the advantage with the inside line, but Turmo's got his nose in front. They go side by side. Turmo has to roll out of it a little earlier. It slots in behind the Acura. Is there enough room to do the crisscross and get back up the inside? No, Redmond covers that off very nicely and will maintain that position. So it's been, Turmo got the undercut out of the pit lane, Redmond made the move, Turmo made the move back, and now Redmond's made the move back. This is a very willing battle between these two.
It's a very clean exchange between them as well.
Another 7/10 between Bolger and Foley that Foley gained. This time it's spread out a bit more, but still 4/10 in the final sector.
Let's go on board with Foley. Let's have a listen to this, gents, because I want to see where he's making this time. We're now down to turn 5, braking, picking up the apex. It's so smooth at the moment. Look at the wheel work. There's not a lot of opposite lock. There's no corrections in that steering wheel. He just looks so planted, this Benz, at the moment. This is where the time's coming. So the second sector split is just on the braking approach here to turn number 6. You trip the market, there it is, right as you tip it in. Note the time, 2.9 seconds the difference between the McLaren ahead and Foley on the track. Let's have a look at how aggressive he is through this part of the circuit. This is where he's making all his time. He's so early on the change through turn 7, gets it well over to the left real early, so he gets a really nice hard turn in for turn 8, and then it's just all power. And he can see that the difference in time, it's just visually, the difference in time looks like it's there, and he gained a full 0.4 of a second in that sector alone.
Yeah, I was on board with Bolger. Sorry, Bagsy. I was on board with Bolger, and he had a little bit of a wide moment at turn 7. But we saw him in qualifying. He was using first gear through turn 7. I think now, because he's trying to save a bit of fuel, he's keeping it in second, and it's just not getting the bite out of the front tires. It's not getting that rotating mass in the engine to spool up and try and nudge that car around. It's very laboured for Bolger at the moment in that last sector, whereas Foley looks like it's dancing through that last sector.
More importantly, it's only the last sector because Bolger's beating him in all the other sectors, really. There was only less than a tenth gained on that lap for Foley. But yeah, Bolger's just really seems, although that being said, this time round, they're much more similar although, yeah, Foley loses 0.3 through the second sector, but seems to just make it all back up in the final one, although Bolger's had a better run through turn 7, which seems to be what's killing him time-wise.
Yeah, I think it's more turn 8 for Steve Bolger as well. I just saw on the helicopter shot that we just switched to, it was quite narrow when he came off of turn 7. He sort of flowed the car out wide and didn't quite move the car all the way back to the left to try and really open up the next turn, whereas Foley's getting the car over really early in the piece. He can take so much more speed through turn 8 before they come to the last couple of corners.
Not on that occasion though, because the last sector time for Foley was a 31.2. It was 0.3 slower than Steve Bolger. In fact, that entire lap for Foley was 0.6 slower. So all the work, all the incremental gains that he's been getting through the last few laps thrown away in one instance.
Still got some time though, that's important. He's still got 11 minutes left on the clock plus the last lap to be able to make amends here. But Bolger's got to dig deep, I think, here. The first sector, they're pretty well matched. I don't think there's much in it between them. It's really sector 3 that's been doing the damage for Foley. And if he gets it wrong, that's when he starts to lose the time. There's 23 flat from both of them in sector 1 that time, 26.6 for both of them in sector 2. And let's see what sector 3 says when they get through. So here it is here. So Bolger, I think, just needs to move it slightly further to the left, and then he can take a bit more speed through the right-hander. Foley seems to be able to get through that part of the track a little bit better, and that's where I think just a couple of tenths are coming. Bolger to the line, he does a 20.6 overall, and Foley does a 19.9, and alone in the last sector again, there it is, a full 6 tenths of 1 second. So it went back the other way. So he lost 6 tenths the previous lap. He gained 6 tenths of the lap that they just did.
Fascinating stuff. This battle between Redmond and Turmo still nose to tail, and I was just trying to pick up what looked like it might be a little bit of a fascinating undercard here. Just up the road from Bolger was the battle between the two PBF Academy Vodia, whatever they want to call it, the two Lexi.
Yeah, it's Ukrainian, I'm told. It stands for PBF Academy Team, something I think is what it is.
Classic. But Cracker and Rhodey were basically neck and neck, and then Rhodey decided to throw that all away by going into the pits. So we saw Rhodey pit with 40 minutes left in the race. Looked like he could only do half-an-hour stints, and yeah, right on cue, half-an-hour stint, Rhodey back through the lane.
I'm wondering if that's a roadie thing, not a car thing, actually. I'm being honest here. I'm wondering if that's a roadie thing, that can only do half-hour stints.
Yeah, that might be. We've seen some hero drives from him.
Oh, Cracker! Oh. Wow! Actually, I'm not sure what was going on there.
There's now a large cracker on the front of the car.
Yes, and a lapse of concentration. So that's very, very strange. I wasn't expecting to see that while I was looking at that before. Let's go to Nathan Higginson instead. Let's see what he's up to. He's the last car, first car, one lap.
Sorry, I'm going to interrupt you. Phil Boakes just bowled wide at turn 1, and it's going to be Tim Redmond and Luke Rosella and Turmo who are going to be on his case. Maybe not very soon. I was trying to build that up to be something that wasn't. He just bowled wide.
Bowled it wide all. He bowled it wide all on his own. He was actually behind Cracker on the track as well, so he passed Cracker after he passed Cracker after he had that off, and then went off himself and surrendered it back.
Worrying signs for Bolger with 8 minutes to go is that he's not even faster in the first and second sectors at the moment than Foley, by minute amounts, but still by small. As am I showing Rosella dropping down on the timing? That's just a glitch.
Yeah, that'll be a glitch for this one. I think there's a he's on the he's just recorrected himself now. He's actually on the main straight. He's actually about to put Camp Parrot 1 lap down here, so that'll mean that means Parrot will be the lead car, first car 1 lap down, and then he won't. There won't be any more drivers to go 1 lap down because Wedding is 38 seconds off leading the race.
Half a second in the final sector.
20.5 versus a 19.8. The gap now less than 2 seconds between Bolger and Foley. We've been tracking this as our main feature on the track, and it looks like we're going to be seeing some proper action any moment soon. Just following up on Turmo and Tim Redmond, it looked like they were getting closer. The Turmo just had a poor last sector again and dropped a few more tenths back. And in fact, look at who's just behind Turmo on track. That is the black Porsche of Lewis Wedding, playing himself back in, only 2 seconds behind this battle now.
Yeah, he's starting to close in on it, so he's recovered pretty well after that spin that he had behind Glenn Miles.
Yeah, he's been about a second a lap faster, pretty consistently.
So this could be another little interesting battle that we're going to see play out in the next couple of minutes.
That was just me reacting to Glenn Miles hitting the wall at pit entry, just in front of our race leader, in fact. Porsche
with a dust peak kick. I don't know how that happened in a straight line when you meant to stay inside the white lines of the track, gentlemen. And 1.8 seconds to margin from Wedding to Turmo. I was wondering if there was a little bit of oversteer sort of happening there for Wedding mid-corner. It wouldn't be the first time he's had that through the very, very high speed turn 6.
Another half a second for Foley.
6 minutes to go. There's 2 battles that we're really interested in at the moment. It's the battle for 2nd and 3rd, and then the battle for 5th, 6th and 7th, which is going to get really interesting. Now, the reason I think Turmo sort of dropped back a little bit from Redmond a few laps ago, Flood, was because they ended up having to negotiate some lap traffic. They had to get around Darren Lockton. I don't think it quite worked out for Turmo the way that he wanted it to. Redmond got through without any issues, but then Turmo got stuck.
Quite possibly indeed, and that is the ebb and flow of GT racing that we see in the real world example as well. So these guys are having to navigate traffic, having to find their way through the field, and sometimes it works for you and sometimes it doesn't. As I'm once again watching Foley and Bolger through their final sector. This lap, Bolger has been quicker to the 2nd sector point, faster in sector 1, only just slower, and I'm talking thousandths slower in sector 2. But through the final sector once again, Foley seems to find something through that last corner.
You can see the gap visually close each time they go through there.
It's not going down at the same rate though at the moment, so it's got to 1.3 seconds. That lap around it only went down, actually it went up the other way, by a tenth. So it went a tenth in Steve Bolger's favour. So it's sort of stabilised a little bit now at this 1.3 second intermediate for the last lap or 2.
And we're now only less than 5 minutes left in the race. So if Foley's looking to make a move soon, he's gonna get his skates on. It's gonna be mighty close to the line. What do you reckon? We've got maybe 4 laps left because of the +1?
A little bit more than that. I think we're probably going to end up with about 52, 53 laps, I think, somewhere in that realm, because the race leader, Luke Rosell, is coming up to the inner loop now. With 4 minutes left on the clock. Minute 20, let's just say a minute 20 left for a lap. So he's probably going to get the better part of another 3 or 4 laps in, I think. So we get to somewhere around 51, 52. Let's see what time he crosses the line. And then we'll do a little bit of mental arithmetic and see what he comes up with. So cross the line with 3 minutes 44 left on the clock. So going off of that one, 3 minutes 44 is 44 plus, I'm doing the math in my head, 180 seconds, we're dividing that by 120. We've got...
I'm going to interrupt the mental maths.
Yep.
Gap is less than a second now at the line, and they just had to negotiate Nathan Higginson, who ran off at turn 1. So Bolger maybe got a little bit of a gain out of that because of Higginson almost rejoined in front of Foley.
By the way,
Wedding has got Termo. There you go. So
wow, that was quick.
That was very quick. Judging by the numbers, going to be another 4 laps. So 4 laps is all that remains in this one.
Oh, Foley carving his way through traffic.
Taking the risks there, hey.
He had to, otherwise he was going to drop too far back. He already lost 2 seconds trying to negotiate Glenn Miles rather, and if he'd lost any more, it would have been game over. So still 1.2 seconds behind heading into the second sector, and he's going to find something in these last few laps in order to get onto the tail of Steve Bolger. But the other story here is Lewis Wedding. He might even grab a top 5. He's got Tim Redmond less than a second in his sights. Don't know where to look at this point, guys.
Well, we're watching Foley at the moment because he's tailing Steve Bolger, and they've got some lap traffic with Brian Walsh to deal with as well. So traffic may come into play here.
Just look how much he's gained.
Yeah, and on top of that, look at that. He's being faulty. Walsh has done the right thing there. Walsh has gotten out of the way.
Half a second in the final sector. It's insanity.
And here we go. Now's the moment Foley's trying to pull the trigger. So keeping on both battles. Foley hunting down Bolger like he's been doing for the last 20 minutes. Wedding's now all over the back of Tim Redmond like a cheap suit, as Flood said earlier. And he's romping towards a top 5 finish, which will be one hell of a recovery drive. He's only a 10th off the PB lap time for himself that time around, Wedding. So he's really digging deep and going to throw down this gauntlet. Now, this is the first time I think that we've properly seen Redmond and Wedding go toe-to-toe in any series in ASR. That includes supercars. So this will be an interesting sort of battle to keep an eye on between the Kiwi versus the Australian. And this is going to get really dicey here. Redmond leaves him plenty of space. He's a gentleman racer.
Too kind.
Too
much respect for Redmond.
That was way too kind, way too easy.
He should have closed the door unceremoniously, like Steve Bolger's currently doing to Brendan Foley as they come onto the main straight.
A car length behind Bolger now.
The gap's immaterial.
Is he going to make the move here? He's going for the outside. Bolger's covering off the inside there. Foley's going to try crisscross him, but Bolger parks it on the apex. This is the only way he's going to be able to keep him back because Foley's going to have so much more speed in the final sector. He's got to park it on every apex, but every chance with the speed Foley has, he might just drive around the outside him once they get to turn 8.
Foley's got to get it done before turn 6, though. That's where my worry is. Unless he can pull off a really good move into turn number 7. I think he's got to get this pass done down the back straight into turn 6. I don't think he's got any other opportunity to do it. And Bolt's blocking already. He's driving straight down the middle of the road and saying, you want the corner, you got to go the long way.
This is going to be a lap and a half left for these guys as Foley comes to the inside. And they're going to go off. They're going to go off. Oh, they somehow managed to keep it on the circuit. Foley squeezed his way through there and wasn't having a bar of anything Bolger was trying to do. But Bolger tries to respond into turn 7. Can Foley pull it up? Yes, he can. He closes the door.
Watch Foley just drive away here now.
Whoa, that was bold from the PBF racing car. Bold like his paint schemes that come through to start the final lap. And it's going to be Foley.
I think Bolger was expecting him to make the move into turn 9 because of the amount of drive Foley had off turn 8 compared to Bolger, and he just sort of caught him unawares there.
He left a Mercedes-sized hole at the inside of the circuit, and Foley threw himself down it without even a second thought. Oh, cracking stuff.
Cracking stuff.
Well, Foley just needs to keep it together for another 6 corners, and he'll be home for second place. Rosella just sort of cleared off. Well, he didn't clear off. He was getting closed down actually, but he just had a nice relaxing drive at the front here. As is that Bolger sort of a bit close down the back straight here?
He's trying.
Maybe
he has been
not.
good in sector 1 and 2. He's in the slipstream, but
He'll
he's
have one
not
more shot
close
into
enough.
7.
No, he's not going to be able to get through at that time. We're going to keep an eye out here because we've got Luke Roselli's coming around the last couple of corners now, so we'll acknowledge the win for Luke Roselli here. Behind him, Brenton Foley looks like he's safe for P2. So another win for Rosella, 45 points in the money bank for him. And we go back to what's ended in an epic scrap. I did say I was hoping, gentlemen, we'd end up with something happening in the last 15 minutes. It wasn't what we had hoped for, as Higginson's had a spin off in the background there. Foley, what a drive. What a strategy call from the Mercedes crew to pull that one off, not only just for himself in P2 ahead of Bolger in P3, but for Phil Boak in P4 as well. They were nowhere in qualifying, and they've pulled a rabbit out of a hat with a strategy masterstroke, and it wasn't a double podium, but it's a good point-scoring effort from the pair of them.
Lewis Wedding will come home fifth. Redmond just over Turmo, holds him out to the lane. Another time that Redmond's gotten one up on Turmo, and the rest of the field was a lap down. Cameron Parrott finishing in 8th place. Nathan Higginson 9th. Darren Longman coming to the line in 10th place. And then Cracker missing his entire front bumper. Oh, and the track as well in turn 7. And Rhodey 2 laps down ahead of Glenn Miles, Brian Walsh, Steve Warwick, an unfortunate retirement. What a close to that race. We were tracking that battle between Foley and Bolger for that entire second stint, and boy did that pay off.
That was one hell of a hunt. That was one hell of a hunt from Brenton Foley, and on top of that, probably one hell of a recovery drive from Lewis Wedding as well. I think he'll be kicking himself, because I think that potentially from where he is now, being 8 seconds behind Phil Boak, he would have thought that 4th probably would have been a possibility there if he hadn't have made that bad strategic error in pit lane. And then not only that, the spin out on track as well. I've got a funny feeling that's probably cost Lewis Wedding at least 4th place on the road today. And very rare to see both team cars make the same mistake in the lane. Wedding's had enough. He's off to the pub.
He's in the garage. He's driving down to, I don't know, Argentina. Is that in that general direction? I hope it is.
Oh, I'm not sure what direction that is. Actually, that's infield, so I don't think he's going to be going too far from that one. But yeah, that's one hell of a race. Not so much out in front, but for the minor placings, that's one hell of a race.
Absolutely, very well done. Rosella, just a quick note on Rosella, just metronomic once again. Didn't put a foot wrong, and yeah, just was able to control the pace and control the field. I wonder, Bolger. Well, we saw Bolger, Redmond, Bolger, Wedding, and Turmo all make mistakes and drop themselves behind Redmond. And in the end, I wonder if Bolger, had he not made those mistakes, would he have been up to challenge with Luke Rosella, perhaps? But the strategy from the AMG pair to come in, get rid of the worry of fuel saving, to be able to go as hard as they wanted for the second half of the race was just impeccable. And yeah, they took some great positions, and they actually extended their lead over the Gravel Rash Racing pair in the teams championship as well.
Yeah, it's a look, to answer your first question, I actually don't think that Steve Bolger may have been up to the challenge of hunting down Luke Rosella after all. I think that maybe Rosella just had a little something in reserve overall for that one, and I don't think he probably was up to that sort of pace just judging by how easily he was able to pull away from the field. But all that really couldn't. I guess all it was, the action was really behind, and that's, I guess, what counted. We had some action to look at, gentlemen. I was hoping it was going to be toward the front. Ultimately, it wasn't at the end of the day, though.
I mean, we had the action for a second, and third. That counts as close enough to the front, doesn't it?
Well, I think it does. Well, they were what? So some 15 seconds off the race win at the end of the day. It definitely was the action point. And well, seeing as you alluded to it, Bagsy, you may as well start. I guess. What do you want to start with? Brenton Foley, or do you want to start with Steve Bolger?
I reckon we'll start with Steve Bolger. Basically held second for a good chunk of the race there, Steve, apart from the initial stint when there was a lot more changing around with yourself and Turmo and Wedding. How are you going in those last laps with the inevitable Foley just coming up behind you?
Mate, I knew if he got close to me on the straight that he'd probably drive past, and he did. Tried to not give him a car's width, but he had just enough to get through. So yeah, the right front tyre was just absolutely gone at the end. But oh, well done the Foley, well done the Luke.
Were you expecting him to have a go into turn 6 there like he did, or were you thinking that he was going to have a go in that final sector where he seemed to be gaining the most advantage?
Final sector is easy to make up a lot of time, but hard to make a pass. So I was expecting him to go on the straight, but didn't know if it was going to be that lap or the next.
Yeah, well, it was a sterling defence, and it was nice watching you try hard. It was unfortunate the race wasn't a lap and a half shorter. The bad luck.
Cheers, mate. It was the off in the first half of the race was the one that got me, but all good.
No worries. And go to Foley as well. Foley, the start of the race, it seemed like it wasn't going too well for you guys after that safety car. You're right at the back. Were you expecting to be able to get all the way back up to second, or were you more aiming for the back end for third or maybe near the podium?
I was originally hoping for near the podium. Me and Phil decided to pit under the safety car because the Merc is thirsty, and I do not enjoy just sitting there doing nothing and saving fuel in a train. So I definitely wanted to do something different, and it definitely paid off this time.
Yeah, it was a very good strategy, and we were commenting earlier in the race that we thought it could have some merit. How confident were you about catching Bolger by the end of the race with about 15 minutes to go? We were thinking you were going to be able to, but it was ebbing and flowing a bit. Were you having the same sort of tyre troubles that Bolger was, or was the Merc a bit easier on them?
I was absolutely murdering the tires trying to catch him. I was for the first few laps, I was ruining myself for the little half spin I had on my pit in lap. But once I kind of got over that, yeah, I just kind of went into qualifying lap mode, and I was extremely happy with my consistency. Then the track definitely came to us. Both me and Phil found a lot of pace right at the end. So I didn't know if I was going to catch him or not, but the plan was to just try as hard as I could and get in the mirrors and try and get close. And when I got close enough, I knew that I'd probably only have one decent shot at it, and I had to do it in a spot where he probably wouldn't expect it, and it paid off.
I think that pass out of 8 and into 9 may have been possible with the amount of drive you got in comparison, or was it always going to be the 6 or 7 pass?
As Bowl just said, it was easy. I don't know why I was making up time there, because in practice that was the sector that I was struggling against everyone, because my car was definitely set up for turn and had a lot of wheel spin. But as I said, the track kind of came to us. But yeah, I didn't think that I would be able to pull the pass off there, so I was trying to just kind of find a different spot.
Fair enough. Well, congratulations on a well-driven podium and second place.
Thanks very much.
I think we'll hand it to Mr. Bathurst Floody for Luke Rosella.
Almost got through the whole broadcast. Luke, another win in this series for you. A bit tense in the first part of the race, but once you got a bit of clear air behind you, you cleared out. Just tell us about how your race went tonight.
Yeah, it was pretty good. I think the Porsche wasn't as strong as it's been all season at this track, and it's also a bit of a due to my hatred of this place. I do not like this circuit at all, but yeah, no, it was pretty good. Had to nurse the tyres in the second stint. I was obviously pushing as hard as I could in the first stint, but yeah, had to nurse them in the second stint, and still had some meat on them at the end, so could have pushed more, but had a pretty comfortable gap to Bolger anyway. But no, it was good.
We saw both you and teammate Lewis Wedding make a mistake in the pit stop, running long and missing your pit bay. Can you just talk us through what happened there?
This is me being an idiot and overstepping the box. Yeah, I've done it a few times this year, not only in AMS but also in iRacing. Yeah, it's not good. I've got to work on it, obviously, but yeah, I think it cost me about maybe 2 or 3 seconds, but I think I had like a 10-second gap to Lewis anyway, so it wasn't as big as a blow as it could have been. But yeah, got to work on it. Can't make them again in an example where the gap's only like 3 or 4 seconds. But nah, it was a pretty good night, nonetheless.
And was it the same problem for Lewis as well? Because he seemed to not realize for a long time that he had a problem.
He told me that I think someone was in front of his box or behind, so he couldn't really turn in and stop on his marks. And yeah, I think he didn't realise that he was taking the stop, so that was an even bigger blow for him. He had a pretty unlucky race. I feel sorry for him, but I think he definitely deserves a top 5 after all the stuff that happened to him in that race. But yeah, we'll press on. I think 3 rounds left.
Yeah, 2 rounds left.
So yeah, we'll press on.
Just a final quick question. We were tracking a battle behind you for quite a long time in the race. Do you miss getting involved in those tight battles because you're out in front? Is that something that you'd like to be involved in more, or are you just happy to take race victories and hot lap and not really worry about anything behind you?
Oh, look, I mean, we're all here to win. No, it's good to battle. But I really want to win this championship. It's the one series, like major series in ASR that I haven't won. So, look, I really want to win this championship. So I'll definitely take race. I'll definitely take race wins, Floody.
Yeah, well, you've taken, 4 so far this season, and with only 3 more races to go, you might make a pretty good effort of winning this championship. So congratulations tonight, Luke, and yeah, best of luck for the rest of the season.
Thanks, Floody.
There was Luke Rosella, our race winner. Thanks, Bagsy, for interviewing Foley and Bolger. Guys, a pretty good race in the end. We expected some action, we expected some tension, and we got that right at the very end of the race.
Yeah, I was amazed.
Definitely.
Go on, Bagsy. Sorry, you go first.
Yeah, it was a bit of a slow burn up to the end there, but the anticipation was well worth it, and the payoff at the end was a very good pass from Foley in the end to make that work, and it was nice to. It's always nice when you get that payoff for the build-up.
Yeah, I like the fact that there's a little bit of a crescendo just sort of building toward the end there, but I guess the way that I look at it was I wasn't expecting the pits to throw the curveball that they did. I was thinking at the beginning of the night we were going to see somebody that got their pit entry wrong and was going to have to do a pass-through penalty, but from Luke Rosella was, as he just pointed out, only cost him a couple of seconds in the pit lane, so he was rather lucky. Lewis Wedding, effectively, he almost did a drive-through with how much extra time he had to spend in the pit lane.
Yeah, absolutely, and it was quite an error, and brought him well back, and he had to fight his way back. And 5th place is a good result considering how much time he lost in that error. He was ahead of Bolger and Boak before that problem, and ended up behind Redmond and Turmo.
I like the fact that there was at least 2 or 3 groups of cars that sort of came together in that one. I think that, the battle for 2nd and 3rd was obviously the really entertaining one, and then the Turmo and Redmond battle that went on for 4th and 5th for the better part of the second half of that race was there. And then we didn't really see Lewis Wedding sneaking up on that battle. We thought he'd sort of thrown it away after he'd had that spin behind Glenn and his pit lane fumble. But apart from that, I didn't expect him to be charging onto the back of the pair of them at the rate that he did. Like he almost had he drove like a man possessed to catch up to those guys, considering how far in arrears he came out of them, and then went further behind them again.
He did all the hard work the first time and had to do all the hard work again. And that's one of the things about endurance racing is, yeah, as I say, it doesn't matter how much pace you've got if you're not consistent. And being consistent isn't just about lapping on track. It's also about being consistent in your strategy and making sure that you cross the I's and dot the T's. Wait, no, that's not right. And Lewis fell afoul of that tonight, and that's just one of those things. Normally, he is so on top of it, and that's why we're making such a big deal out of it, because it is very unlike him for him to not be perfect in his strategy and perfect with all those 1%ers, and he missed out tonight. But someone who didn't miss out tonight was Luke Rosella. He chalked up another win, and that's 4 wins and 5 podiums, and he's really firming up as the favourite for the rest of the championship.
He certainly is. Well, we've got 2 more rounds left in the calendar. Now, thankfully, the 2 rounds that we have remaining are both tracks that we've visited before. We've got the Hockenheim Ring, which is a personal favourite, I must say. And then we've got Spa, which, of course, we've got a new edition of Spa. Bagsy, before we go, let's have a very quick, brief look at Hockenheim Ring in 2 weeks. Where do you think the favourite is going to be? I mean, Luke Rosell is still the favourite, but what else do you think is going to happen? Is a 90-minute race, keep in mind. So there's a very busy track in some parts with a couple of long straights, and concentration's going to be up there, I think.
Well, my main thought is that it's still not too late to change to the old Hockenheim layout because that would make for a much better race, in my opinion, compared to the new one, which sucks in comparison. I'd love to see a track like the old Hockenheim ring for something like this endurance race. That would make it more of a test, I think. But that being said, the Porsches are still quite good on their fuel, and Rosella is still quite good a driver. So without a mistake from him, although we have seen, we did see the pit stop mistake today, but I feel like it's a track he's going to be quite at home at, and he'll get that car dialed in pretty well. And both of the Loose Sim sports cars will. So I'm thinking maybe a Porsche 1-2.
Yeah, I wouldn't put it past there being a Porsche 1-2. I mean, I think the winner is going to come probably from at least the front half a dozen cars that are in the championship anyway. Flood, what do you think?
I actually don't mind the new Hockenheim ring. I think the changes that they have made are make it a good modern racing circuit, even though it is not the terrifying crazy that was the old Hockenheim. The passing zones into turn 2 and turn 4 are going to be really, really important. So having good confidence on your brakes and good confidence in a straight line. We saw Phil Boak and Brenton Foley in the Mercedes have that confidence today. So I think they might be on for a good result. But yeah, you can't really go too far past the Porsches at the moment.
No, I tend to agree. We'll leave it at that. We've got 2 more weeks to wait, and then we'll have round 5 of the GT3 series underway for you right here on Outworld Broadcasting. A bit later on this week, Friday night, in fact, it's round 4 of the ASR Supercars Championship taking place from Winton Motor Raceway. It's a triple header at Winton, 3 50k sprint races, and we'll look forward to your company then. Until then, it's drive safely, please, everybody, and see you next time. Bye for now.